Welcome to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the exciting science behind HRV and how you can apply it to your own health and the work that you do. Just a note, this podcast does not replace medical advice, and if you're going to apply this to your own life or others, please consult with a medical provider. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. This is Jeff Summers, co-founder of Optimal HRV with my partner in crime, Matt Bennett, the day before Election Day, Matt.
I know, we're so far ahead of these. When this goes live, it'll be a week from Election Day, which I wish our future selves could tap in and say, hey, everything's going to be okay.
Wouldn't that be nice?
All those stores boarding up their windows, they're just all over. We all overreacted. So future self, let's just pretend we're a week from Election Day. Jeff, isn't it amazing how we've come together as a country, self-regulated, got over our differences, and peacefully are moving forward to better the world?
It's a beautiful thing, my friend. It's a beautiful
Amazing
thing.
how quickly our country heals and gets over its wounds.
It is, especially with a tool like HRV, right?
Yes.
It's going to be interesting, my friend. It's been the weird year continues, but hopefully this will be the beginning of getting back to some sort of normalcy. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. You said it. So let's talk about more fun things.
Biohacks.
There are some very strange biohacks for heart rate variability. And, you've been touting these to me for quite a while.
Yeah.
The ones that I've experimented with certainly work. So yeah. I got to give it up. Obviously, the research is right. Imagine that.
Yep.
So, I don't know, jump in. What are some of your favorites? I guess there are quite a few of them. What do you find yourself doing more often than not when you have a bad reading in the morning? It's red. Yeah. You got a bunch of trainings. You got podcasts. Right. You got all these things to do. What kind of hacks do you put together to have a more productive day?
Right. So a few things that, and again, I love this from another mental health perspective because these are things never talked about as a therapist. And so there's some things that we can work in pretty easy, again, to improve social, emotional, cognitive, medical health. The one which kind of bridges us to our previous podcasts on nutrition and diet is intermittent fasting. This thing, and I mentioned I've nerded out about something called NAD+. But the other thing that just really seems to have a powerful impact on both our short-term health and also our ability to live a long, healthy life is calorie restriction. Now that sounds pretty terrible right up front, right? Oh, calorie restriction. And initially it was kind of like these ultra skinny people who ate like a fig and a thing of celery all day. Thank goodness we progressed beyond those folks. So intermittent fasting is a really interesting concept, which again, the nutritional sciences seems to contradict itself every about 5 years, which makes it a little scary to talk about this stuff on the record. This might be something too. Most of what we talk about in this podcast will be really medically safe. Intermittent fasting, you might do your own research for sure. And if you have any pre-existing conditions, please check with your medical provider. Make sure it's safe for you. But really, at the very basic level, it's usually you hear 16 for men, 14 for women. Again, very binary. I apologize for that, but that's what you see in the research. A period of time before your last calorie at night and your first calorie the next day. Now, just a little other piece of science. Most things I've seen is try to eat your last calorie before 7 at night. Just gives your body a chance to digest your food a little bit before you sleep, because digestion can interrupt sleep quality to some extent. Not a huge, not like drinking for most of us like an espresso before bed, but again, just deeper quality of sleep. So this challenges a few things, and it's one of my favorite biohacks because it's so easy and it's free. I love these apps, Jeff. There's like mindfulness we talked about. It's like, you don't have to pay for it, but you can. It's like now people are trying to monetize intermittent fasting. It's like, what you got to give some folks credit for is like, you're trying to make money off of people not eating. Great. But, so it's this calorie restriction and it's pretty easy to do. I mean, 16 hours, one of the things that challenges, I'm not sure, Jeff, when you were in school and you had to do those god awful standardized tests, but they'd always say, make sure you get up and eat a good breakfast. And we're sort of moving away from that to say that if you can wait the 14 to 16 hours, even if you're delaying or skipping breakfast, that might be better for most people. And so what does this do? One is it gives it gives your body a chance to digest all the food in it. One of the things I never really thought about it, it's like, hey, if you do curls and you just keep doing curls, eventually you're going to wear your biceps out to a point where it's not going to be healthy. A lot of us, how we eat is, I know I was a grazer. So it's like, every time I got up, I got, a handful of chips or nuts or berry, something. I mean, it wasn't like unhealthy, but I just always like, hey, I stood up, I burned a calorie, might as well replace it. and giving yourself this deadline cutoff, what it does, it allows all your food to digest. And some of the folks, I bet most of the listeners have heard of the keto diet. Now, I'm not an expert on the keto diet. I've heard positives and negatives on it. I'm not on the keto diet, just so FYI, there's other resources out there. But what the keto diet is really about is it's a whole way to eat, which I'm not going to get into, but at some point your body goes in this keto state, ketosis, I think it's called. Yeah. And what you're doing is you're getting your energy from your stored fat instead of the food in your belly. So what intermittent fasting does is it puts you in that state and allows you to be in that keto state, which is a beautiful form of energy. I've especially usually on the weekends, I have time to do this. I'll do at the end of my 16 hours, I'll go for a longer run. And, you would think like, oh, you don't have any food in your belly. You didn't eat breakfast. You don't have your blood. No, it's like beautiful energy. Now I'm not running sprints or anything like that. But I just, for distance running, I just find it like such a great energy to run on. It's a really fascinating thing. So you get your body almost in a survival reaction. It's not an extreme one. It's just like that calorie restriction kind of kicks the survival mechanisms in your body up. And it really almost replenishes your body. It recharges your battery. And getting yourself in this state on a regular basis is being shown. Animal studies are the early indicators on this, but being shown besides managing things like diabetes. But again, talk to your medical doctor. Diabetes and other medical conditions, also really good, in my studies, living a much longer, healthier life. You've got this 16 hours. So you're basically eating for 8 hours. Now I'm lucky enough. Well, a lot of us now are working from home. So I try to eat dinner around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So I can have my god awful shake that I talked about in the last podcast somewhere in the morning. I still like that, but I mean, it just gives me that nice span of time to do. So I highly encourage play around with this. If it's not for you, it's not for you, but there's a lot of amazing research coming out about this. Part of it is it really has been shown to improve heart rate variability. So again, it's another indication along with the other research about how good this can be for you. Now, there's other things that I try to really biohack this one, Jeff, is there's also, and again, this is medical doctors, check in on them, especially if you have pre-existing conditions, but getting some 24-hour fast in as well. And there's been some research out that during that 24 hours, you can have about 500 calories within that span. So how I've structured most of my meals now, if I've got a lunch meeting, or this is probably about 4 days out of the week or so, is like I'll eat a big meal around 3 to 4, which I know that's not everybody can do that. But then I'll pretty much I'll stop eating there, and then but it's a big meal. It's going to get me through to bedtime without being tired. And then I have that god awful shake, which even though it's really filling because of the chia seeds and the cacao, not a whole lot of calories in it. So in some ways, I keep that 24-hour cycle going. It's probably 23 and a half hours, 23 hours, but I keep myself in that keto state even longer. And I usually get another hour or two of good energy in the workday for it. So again, there's some fasting programs out there where you kind of eat normal for 5 days a week and do 2 24-hour fasting. I also found with the 24, if you're going to do it kind of in a normal routine, eat a really big meal around 10 o'clock in the morning, kind of gets you through the day, and you kind of wake up, and before you know it, it's 10 o'clock. But just a lot of really good research coming out about intermittent fasting. So Jeff, I don't know if you've ever tried it, but it's probably my favorite biohack right now. And I'll be honest, I don't think I'll ever go back to not doing it at this point.
Yeah, once you get used to it. Yeah. I mean, it's, it logically makes sense. When you think about heart rate variability and the recovery side of it, you're giving your body an opportunity to recover. And every time you put a calorie in your body, it has to do work. Whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's a sugary beverage, even just a fruit juice, whatever it is, your body's working to process it. Absolutely. And so when you stop doing that and you give your body a prolonged period of time to recover, now all of a sudden it's got the ability to recover from other things, like stress.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't take it quite as far as you do. But we have 2 little kids at home, as everyone knows that listens to this podcast. So we eat early because I go to bed early. And so we're finished typically eating for the night at 6 p.m. or so. Yep. And then as I've gotten older, I've just skipped breakfast in general because, a lot of the research that you're talking about that I'm familiar with, a lot of it also just goes back to if you limit the number of hours you're consuming calories, you're very likely going to consume less of them. Yeah, which means you're going to weigh less, which means you're going to have less risk for diabetes, heart disease. And, regardless of how healthy those calories are, if you just eat less unhealthy calories, it's better for you than more unhealthy calories, right? So, if you think about why, back to the discussion around nutrition and how it relates to HRV. I mean, I think people who are conscious of this and are going through a very mindful practice on when they're consuming calories, likely are probably eating better as well. So it's just this whole combination of all these things that make you in general healthier, which are going to increase your heart rate variability.
Yeah. And the other thing I found too, and it's not that I don't enjoy good food. I think I've enjoyed it a little less because our budget and just public health, we're not going out to eat nearly as much as we used to. But my relationship with food has changed pretty drastically as well. Again, I can go out and there's some interesting research. I haven't seen this consistent, but there's been a couple studies that show having a cheat day is a good thing on this. Mm-hmm. So like going out and maybe like just having a meal at like 9 o'clock or, big thick dessert, like doing that once a week can actually be a good thing. I haven't heard the why behind that, but they've also seen that mostly in animal studies that I've seen. But it's it's just like, okay, I need to eat because it's getting the time to eat, and it's not like I was spending hours making dinner anyway. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, it's time to eat. Let's get it done. And when I'm just like, okay, I got to fit my meal in, I'm more likely to just pick up healthy stuff and throw a salad together. Those sort of things. So, definitely helps out for sure with that as well. It's like, I'm not planning a 3-4 course meal, which, wasn't anything I was doing anyway, but yeah. So intermittent fasting, I would encourage everybody, check it
Give
out.
It a shot.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really easy thing to do once you get used to it. And again, I find I have more energy throughout the day. Also things it's supposed to help you sleep better. I've admitted I'm not a great sleeper, so I'm not sure, but yeah, a lot of great, I mean, it really seems to be how our body was created to consume calories. I think that's what all this is pointing to, is that's, breakfast is break the fast. I mean, we used to have this natural break, and even go back to hunter and gatherer. You may have had one big meal, and you were lucky, and so you didn't have a refrigerator to put the deer after you killed it. So
that's right.
You're going to eat a lot.
As you could.
Yep, it's feast or famine sort of thing with that. So that's one. The other one I like to throw out there for those that might be interested. And this is one that we try to limit the ones that cost a whole lot of money. And this one is one of those that might cost money, and that's some of these body therapies. Things like massage for a lot of people are good for HRV. There's something that I'm interested from a trauma perspective called cranial sacral therapy, where it's work done on the neck, which is obviously where the vagal nerve that we've talked about is located. And there's some really interesting connections between that, autonomic nervous system health. One of the best books I've read around vagus nerve health is by a chiropractor. And so there's, fascia and bone structure. And so, especially if you're carrying around a lot of aches and pains, some of the body work therapies have got some HRV evidence behind them as well. I know we are working with, we'll have him on at some point as a guest on the podcast, but an amazing occupational therapist in Chicago who's using the app, and she's measuring some great results from her. In occupational therapy, don't think about working to get somebody back necessarily in the workforce. They're doing a lot of sensory integration work, helping to regulate emotionally folks, really key treatment in the autism realm. And they're showing really impressive jumps in HRV pre and post sessions. So a lot of times calming ourselves, the body in these, whether it's chiropractic, massage therapy, cranial sacral. I'm really interested in the hydro tanks that are fully dark.
Yeah, hydrotherapy.
Yeah.
I got one of those sessions for my wife as a present for a gift this year. She hasn't done it yet, though. I need to remind her. That gift certificate may be expiring soon. I don't know.
Yeah. I tried to make it I saw it on the road. I was in San Diego and there was one across the street. I'm like, I gotta go. And they were booked out. But things like that. Again, there's evidence there that for some people, like said, if it's right for you, that can really improve HRV as well. The other thing you mentioned is hydrotherapy. I want to give a little bit of another kind of twist on that. And this is what I do every day. You talk about one of those things where, that helps get HRV back on track. And it's this alternating hot and cold showers. And there's some interesting work done from a man named Hoff. And, he's done, it's HOF, the Hoff method. And I don't know why I say it Hoff, but I don't know. I just don't know, Jeff, if I know how to say an H and an O and an F together.
I think you found it. That's it. Hoff.
So he's done some interesting stuff. Some of it's a little fanatical. I think he ran a marathon barefoot in the Arctic, and kind of one of those guys who we'll run across in this wellness community and our work here. But
respect for somebody that can do that. That's incredible. Yeah, but
you could put on some shoes. I don't know. More power to you. More power to you. Anyway, but what he's done, and what I think his work has been really key, is it's really brought to life the power, it seems, of exposure to cold. I'll give you my routine, because I can't just take a cold shower. Now, if you can take just a cold shower, seems to be a really good thing. I think my thing's better the way I do it. And it's not my thing. I didn't invent it. But you take, because I want to enjoy the shower a little bit. And I'm not a guy that loves cold. I don't mind cold, but you live in Colorado, you figure out how to manage cold. I lived up in the mountains and I had my like January coat and I had my November coat, right? I had a parka for those really cold months and then just a regular winter jacket for the other one. So we manage cold, but one of the things that I find really, really good for my HRV is I'll take a hot shower because I really wanted to take a hot shower and I enjoy it. And then at the end, what I do is, so I'm in the hot, and then I go as cold as I can stand for about a minute. Now, I always like to say, get goosebumps all over your body. That's a really, try to get every piece of your skin all goosebumped up. And so you're basically going as cold as you can take. So now what are you doing? Why is this improving HRV, cardiovascular health? Is hot water, it brings the blood up to the surface. So it brings that blood out. And then when you shock your body with cold water, so when you get cold, your blood constricts into your center and it really triggers a sympathetic reaction. Now, what you really want to do when you trigger it, because, oh my God, it is hard to do, right? It's not pleasant, right? You just go to as cold as you can stand and then turn it just a little bit more. And what that does is what I challenge the listeners to do when you try this, maintain that coherent breath, or even go the 2-to-1 where you're in for 5, out for 10, because if you can regulate your autonomic nervous system while it's going into a very mild form of shock, because this is not shock. I want to be very clear, but like startled more like. So you activate this, but if you can, it's a great time to practice regulating your autonomic nervous system. So you get as cold as you can stand for about a minute. Like I said, I usually get goosebumps all over your body, then go back to as hot as you can stand. Okay, so you constricted all that blood flow. Now you expanded that out. So basically you get all the goosebumps out, you get it all nice and warm again. And then you go back to cold, hot, always finish on cold. Now, this thing, I hate it when I'm doing it. I'm like, why do I do this to myself? but I tell you what, Jeff, I'm not sure if you've taken me up on this, but
this one I've not done, no.
When you walk out of the shower, you feel great. Like you feel way different. And so like if I, especially like traveling, like I'll do like a training all day and then the clients will want to go out to dinner afterwards, but I have like a hour break and I'm kind of like gross from the training because I get all animated and sweaty when I train. And so I'll be like, I just want to go to bed, and I'll like go in and I'll do this and I feel like really great afterwards. Like it's just like a shock to the system. It wakes up, like gets that sympathetic parasympathetic balance, and it just kind of gives you a nice shock. So if I got to do a training on East Coast time and at like 7 in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, do that, gets my body up and moving. So give it a shot, Jeff. Give it a shot. I want to report back at our next podcast. Little thing, you can also just take a cold shower. That's the other option here.
I mean, I've done that, many times, not not on purpose, due to hot water being out and in need of a cleanse. And it's an interesting thing because everybody's swam in water that's cold, on purpose, or you're in the mountain lake and you want to jump in and you dare each other, whatever. And it's getting yourself to do it. And it's the first exposure. And then once you're submerged, or once that you're used to that shower water being cold, you can manage it, and I think it kind of probably gets back to resiliency in a way, in terms of fostering that continued resiliency physically in a different type of way.
Right. I mean,
so yes, I will do this before our next podcast. I will report back. And just like everything else, I'm guessing, you mentioned a 3-cycle hot, cold, hot, or hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, 4-cycle, whatever it was. I'm guessing just a 1 or 2 is better than nothing, right? So if you go to cold and you go back, it's probably better than not doing it all, right?
I would say you need, you start on hot, because like I said, if you can do all cold, you've got my respect. But I would say 3 cycles and you're ending on cold. So you take your shower, you can go cold all you want, take a shower on hot, go cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. So that's what I've seen. So it's only 2 more minutes of your time.
I hear you. I'm just, for people that are on the board, I mean, there might be people who are listening to that thinking, no thanks.
So. Yeah, I mean, but get it to the end. You know, you can also, I think the other thing is, you know, not everybody does this, but there's some in Colorado that, you know, especially after a long day on the slopes, one of the best things in the world is getting a hot tub. And then at the end, you just jump out and do a face plant in the snow. It just feels so painfully good. And, you know, there's a reason why people take ice baths, and do those cryo chambers.
I've done the polar plunge before, jumped in a reservoir in January, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
afterwards you feel great, you know.
There's some real science behind this too. I'm not just setting people up to go torture themselves, but there's some really good science behind this. I like the alternating. I think it's actually, in my opinion, I think it's a better thing because you're getting the constriction. You can work on your breathing more. But again, this exposure to cold, be careful with it. Like I said, if you're going, there's a few mountain lakes here in Colorado. I know the one I lived in, you jump in there, you might not be coming out. So, not everybody come to Colorado and go jump in a random lake.
No.
Make sure you're well supervised if you're going to jump in a mountain lake. But, you know, it's just that exposure to it. That again, if you can control your reaction, it's like being a grape, right? You think about those wine grapes in Napa. Grapes really become great for wine when there's really hot days and really cold nights. So don't make yourself a raisin and go too far out there. Just be that really good Chardonnay grape that's going on the vine. So another little thing, again, it's free. You know, maybe another penny of hot water going back and forth, but that's about it. So the next one I want to talk about, this one is really free. And it's a very simple stretch. And I'll try to do it verbally if you're not watching the video of this. But it's basically, if you can think about leaning your head and trying to get your ear to your shoulder. And if you want to go get some bonus points, so I'm going to lean over to my left shoulder. So my left ear to my left shoulder. And then I'm going to take my left hand. I'm going to stick it behind my back and grab it in the right. So my left hand is right below my right shoulder. And I know everything's mirrored on Zoom here. And then lean it over to that shoulder. And basically what I'm doing is I'm stretching the vagal nerve. This one I also got from a chiropractor. And so again, ear to shoulder, hold it there for about a count of 10. And we're really just stretching the vagal nerve. And again, one of the things that we can see, and this is why sacrocranial therapy, where it's doing small manipulations of the neck, has been shown to be really effective because, you know, if you've got a tight neck, and I think a lot of us working at home since staring at a computer all day can resonate with this, you know, that's your cranial nerve. And that's so crucial to your ventral vagal functioning, your dorsal vagal functioning, the regulation of your sympathetic system as well. So again, just ear to shoulder, get that good stretch in, ear to shoulder, throw that into your morning routine, try to get that in throughout the day. You know, I also do the neck rolls as well, where you roll it all the way around. I'm getting old. I can tell because it makes all kinds of gross sounds when I do it. The more I do it,
when we were in gym class as kids, they had us do that. Who knew it was actually really good for us?
Right? Cartilage, yeah, but just that rolling around too. I'm a guy who I can never find my perfect pillow ratio for whatever reason. Like I wake up with a kink in my neck, and so I've really focused on this. And just a nice thing, if you're going to do a little mindfulness in the morning, just stretch that throughout the day. The last thing I want to do is also free. And this one's weird. I never thought this would get into my morning routine. And this is an internal activation of the vagal cranial nerve. So never thought I'd give this advice, Jeff, but a few things that you can do to improve your heart rate variability. Sing.
Yeah,
when you're doing my shower routine,
man. That's a stress relief.
Sing your lungs out. You know, one of the things I thought about for folks that I used to work with is maybe like a choir might be a great intervention for a lot of folks. You know, you're with a group of people now, obviously during a pandemic, maybe, I don't know if there's choirs even meeting right now, but that vocalization. Now, if you're like me and you can't carry a tune to save your life, other things you can do is hum. So when I do the ear to neck stretch, I also, when I exhale, I so the humming is activating the vagal nerve. Gargling, I gargle every morning for about a minute. It's not like I'm gargling for an hour, but I'm activating that vagal nerve. In the morning, I'm trying to really wake it up. So when I do my mindfulness breathing, that coherent breathing, I do a 10 in and on the out. And there's a lot of interesting research about the tone of Om or Amen. You see these religious traditions, they have this, a lot of their prayers have the Om sort of thing. And what we're now seeing with the science is the Om or the Amen. That is really activating the ventral vagal nerve and improving heart rate variability. So I just gargle. I found a little bit like getting a little warm salt water is actually good for your throat health as well. So gargle in the morning with some warm salt water. Good for a lot of different things as far as your throat health. We're entering cold, flu, COVID season ×2. So doing a little gargling, do a little singing, do a little humming. Research also says your gag reflex is good for ventral vagal activation, but I just can't suggest people just activate their gag reflex on their own. Maybe it's just me.
I think that's probably.
I mean, I've worked with folks with eating disorder. I don't know what it is. I don't know who would want to. I don't know who would want to take a cold shower either, but I'd much rather stay in a cold shower for 5 minutes than gag myself to activate my ventral vagal nerve. So
I would agree.
When we hum, when we sing, if you say prayers, kind of, you use like maybe singing while you do it, use a deep voice. A lot of yoga practices, they talk about that humming, and we see that there's actually biological benefits from doing all this stuff. So there's just some of these really cool hacks that you can do. A few others, one of the ones I like is basically I have a beard, so it's really easy for me to do this verbally, is there's a lot of really cool research about tapping. So I'm just kind of hitting my face with my fingertips. And if you think about tapping along your beard, the ventral vagal nerve is highly connected within your facial muscles. You can think about also the parts of your face that's covered by a mask. You can almost tap out the outlines of your mask. And what that does is that activates the ventral vagal in the morning. So great way to get that parasympathetic, sympathetic balance. Another thing, again, a weird thing, don't blow out your eardrums, but gently put your fingers in your ear and push in to just kind of have that little beat in your eardrum, because the ventral vagal is also highly connected to your eardrum as well. So those are two other little biohacks. I almost forget these because they're all in my morning routine. So, just to kind of put all the pieces together, hopefully I get a good night's sleep.
Again, make sure you haven't eaten for a while once you go to sleep.
Exactly. Wake up in the morning, do kind of my morning routine. I nini pot too. Don't know if that improves my HRV, but I don't know, nasal health is good. Do some gargling. So all my sinuses are pretty cleared out. So I do the gargle. I have all my shake, depending on what time it is, the supplements that I mentioned. And then what I do for about 10 minutes, I do some movement therapy, sort of like a Tai Chi. I do a version called Wing Chun forms. And then I spend about 12 minutes of that doing the inhale with the hum. I do the stretching as well. So I've kind of put these pieces together. And what really takes, morning routine, I also walk the dogs in that, so I get some sunshine to tell my body, hey, it's daytime. And so, just those trying to fit these pieces together into a routine then it becomes habit, and it's just pretty much part of everything I do before I sit down to do my work in the morning. Like I said, part of some stuff I'd already do anyway. You know, and you can throw in other things in there, like I do 2 pint glasses of water in the morning to make sure I'm hydrated. If you don't live in Colorado, you might only need 1, but obviously hydration is really important. And there's some, you know, we often wake up dehydrated. So having a glass or 2 of water in the morning really can trigger that as well. So hopefully if you put the last 4 or 5 podcasts together, we've given you a lot of ways just to improve your overall health and wellness. And I think a lot of times we think about our medical health. The cool thing with HRV is all these studies show us is, hey, we do the humming, we do the tapping, we do the stretching, we do the showers. We're not only improving our medical health, but also social health, cognitive health, right, emotional health as well. So again, as a therapist, never thought I'd say somebody, hey, turn the shower on cold. This was not anything as a therapist I thought I would do, ever give advice to people. But again, the research is really solid behind everything we've mentioned through this series. So yeah, hopefully we've given people a lot of things to think about. Just again, if you take 1 or 2 of these, maybe cutting back on inflammatory foods, maybe trying the shower, a little bit of mindfulness, play around with them. And if you're on an HRV app, you can really measure what the positive impact of these have over time. And, you know, if the science bears out for you personally, you should see good improvements steadily over time by integrating some of these hacks. And if you can't remember everything we said, we really summarized this all really within 1 chapter, which is chapter 6 in the book. So, you know, good reason to go to optimalhrv.com, download the book, because basically you've got all the stuff we've talked about there in that 1 chapter.
That's it. Yeah. And, you know, for the folks that work in these professions, you know, if you're a chiropractor or you're an occupational therapist or you know, some of the other folks that Matt mentioned during this podcast, we'd love to work with you and help you quantify some of the benefits that your clients and patients get by seeing you and consuming, you know, the services that you provide. Massage therapists, you know, we're working with folks like that. And, you know, from what we're seeing, they're getting a 20 to 40% increase in their HRV scores for their patients from when they take a pre-reading to a post-reading after their sessions. So it's pretty significant stuff. And if you're somebody that wants to put some numbers behind it and not only say, don't you feel good, but here, look at this data, you are better than you were before, this is a great way to do it. So absolutely. And a lot of these, I mean, and I say this with all due respect in things. I've gone to chiropractic, I've done cranial sacral therapy, I've done massages, but a lot like these terms will be complementary or alternative. Acupuncture is another one. Yeah. I really hope HRV, these are treatments. And I hope if we can demonstrate, hey, a massage can actually improve HRV, not just short-term, but long-term, you know, hopefully, you know, and I know a lot of healthcare plans have integrated some of these, but hopefully, you know, that we can take the complementary or alternative, you know, labels off some of these treatments. I know our OT friend is, I mean, boy, you know, I'm not sure many medical treatments could, you know, get any kind of the results that she's getting. And obviously that's pre and post, but when you see those sort of jumps in a 60-minute session with a client, you are doing something very powerful. You know, so we're really excited to see the long-term improvements in her clinic as well. So we're just at the beginning of this journey with them, but you know, I mean, it's big jumps that they're seeing, and you know, it's really exciting to see. And you know, you can just kind of ask questions, and she does go, well, we got one folk that, you know, and it's like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's be curious about why we might not see a big jump or a regression with, I think they had one person that they didn't
get a huge improvement on. And, you know, it's just fun to work with people that are so curious about this. And like I said, can we show that acupuncture improves HRV? Can we show that chiropractic services, you know, because, yeah, I benefited from these. And yet I think, again, the traditional medical world will sometimes roll your eyes when you mention these, but, you know, throw HRV on there.
Data's data. That's right.
Because we know HRV improves, again, mental, cognitive, social, emotional health. So, you know, show that works. And you're probably showing that you may get a lot more benefit going to one of those alternative, I'm doing air quotes here now, or complementary therapies, than taking a medication that might have a lot of really bad side effects to it. So again, not against medication, but, you know.
Sure, there's other ways. That's
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. All right. Well, good stuff, Matt. Appreciate it. Some interesting things for people to think about today.
Yeah.
Well, to everybody, I guess by the time you all see it, we'll know what the future has in store for Matt and I today. But again, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, if you want to work with us, reach out, support at Optimal HRV, sales at Optimal HRV. We would love to hear from you and talk more about how this can be a tool in your practice or whatever you're trying to accomplish personally as well.
Yep. Everybody take care.
Take care, everybody.
Send us good messages from the future. So
that's right. That's it.
All right. Talk to you later,
everybody.
Jeff.
Take care, Matt.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you're interested in more information about HRV, please visit us at optimalhrv.com. Also, if you visit optimalhrv.com, you'll be able to sign up for our email list and download our free ebook, Healing with HRV. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.